The Tiger and the Tampon, coming to a theater near you.
A 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to another episode of A Very Odd Caster. With football being over finally, sports aficionados like myself really don't know where to turn in the dog days of February. The NBA All-Star Game was last Sunday, and that may be the biggest joke of a contest of all times. I think it's worse than the Pro Bowl. And the Pro Bowl is doing curling competitions, instead of playing football. So the NBA All-Star Game, it's just really bad. I mean, the only major sport All-Star Game, I guess the NHL All-Star Game is still a competitive thing. Baseball All-Star Game, the MLB All-Star Game, of course, they've added some spice to that by making the winner of that game getting the home field advantage for the World Series. I don't know if they changed that back. I don't like that rule, by the way, because a team wins 110 games and then their league happens to lose the All-Star game and they lose home field. Not fair. But at least they play hard. The NBA is a total joke, the All-Star game. I'm a huge hoops fan, and I'm an NBA fan too. And I played the game for a long time, including hundreds of afternoons and evenings in open gym environments. And anyone who does that is familiar with the situation where you get a bunch of clowns down there goofing around when you're trying to play a semi-serious game of basketball, and they ruin it for everyone else by goofing off, whether they're talented or not. A lot of times it's because they are talented and they think they're too good. Does that sound familiar? NBA All-Stars? So, in those open gym environments, ultimately people just say, I'm going home. This sucks. This is a waste of time. I'm not here to watch you jack up 50-foot shots or, whatever. So I've stopped watching the NBA All-Star Game. Used to watch it faithfully, but I'm like, what the hell? So anyhow, there's no football left, and now you got, the NBA at mid-season, and until the playoffs start, it's no fun, and we're still a few weeks away from March Madness. So, what is a sports fan to do? Fortunately, there are still some sports diversions out there, such as the one from one Tiger Woods at the Genesis Invitational. Of course, there was a great outcry, and what happened was, for those who are living under a rock, so Tiger was paired up with Justin Thomas, and Thomas hits his tee shot. I don't know how far the ball went, but then Tiger followed up with his tee shot and outdrove Thomas. So they're walking together down the fairway, and this is kind of a private moment. It's a semi-private moment, right? This wasn't really supposed to be for public consumption. But Tiger does a little gag, a little kind of sophomoric male gag, where he apparently had been saving it for this moment, and he pulls out a tampon and hands it to Justin Thomas very discreetly and makes a wisecrack, and Thomas laughs and whatever. So there was a big uproar because it was captured on camera or something. I didn't actually see it, but there's a big outcry. And, so of course Tiger had to apologize. And, he's right in the middle of a tournament. He made the cut, I think. And so in order to keep his focus, he doesn't need this as a distraction. So that's why he apologized. It's kind of ridiculous. Sure, it wasn't a very tasteful joke. Sure, it was in its own way kind of a sexist joke, right? Guys would find it funny, except for the soy variety of male. And the women, some women might laugh it off, others won't like it. But it's kind of a guy joke, right? It would be like if two women golfers were teeing off and one woman hits it however far, and then the next woman gets up there and hits it farther, and they start walking down the fairway together, and the woman who hit the drive farther hands the other woman, some Viagra, that you wouldn't see probably the same amount of outrage, even though it's making fun of guys and guys with electoral problems. It wasn't a political joke, was it? So you wouldn't see that kind of an outrage, but Tiger deserved a little blowback, but whatever. However, as within all things these days, there is no sense of humor left, and the incident was blown up to the point where it just became, it took on a life of its own. And it's got blown up so much, they've even got a children's story about it. And I'd like to read that story to you. This story is called The Tiger and the Tampon. Once upon a time, in a land of majestic green hills and lush dew-stained meadows, with still tranquil lakes and flags mounted as far as the eye could see, and impeccably manicured grass, occasionally mixed with pearly white tiny beaches, coexisting with patches of small emerald forests, there lived a young tiger. And Tiger liked to roam these majestic hills with his favorite stick and hit a little white ball with the tiniest of dimples. And could young Tiger ever hit that ball? He hit it so far and so straight that people came from miles around just to watch him. And little boys loved to come to the hills and play the game with him. But Tiger could hit the ball much farther than any of these boys, even after he hurt his back and knees, as well as when a chastity belt was buckled around his waist. The only thing that could stop Tiger was the tall trees that often obstructed his view of the flags, which is where he liked to direct his shots. And most often, when he hit the ball, it would go straight to the flag, causing the crowds of people to erupt in applause. But on occasion, his shot would hit one of the emerald trees near the lush green meadow. And when this happened, the ball would make a loud wooden clonk sound. And whenever Tiger heard that sound, he knew he had made a mistake. Then one day, when Tiger was playing with a boy named Justin, he hit the ball high and far, but it was headed straight for the trees. But this time it made a different noise, a higher-pitched, hollow noise that sounded like a plastic baseball bat hitting a wiffle ball. Tiger ran up the hill to see what he had hit and was shocked to see a giant rocket ship standing amongst the trees. Tiger shouted for Justin to come see his discovery. And when he got there, Justin was amazed at the sight. But upon closer inspection, it was not a rocket, but a giant tampon instead. The two of them chuckled quietly, and each of them wondered why the other one hadn't yelled, "4!" It's golf lingo. But then the people who had been watching Tiger turned on him and chased him through the meadows with their pitchforks and torches. They cornered poor Tiger near a wooden cabin called the 19th Hole Lounge. Things were looking grim for Tiger, but just then, a loud roar filled the sky. The people looked around in confusion to see what was happening. Tiger and Justin looked at each other, equally confused. And then they saw it. The giant tampon had lifted off from the trees and was soaring through the sky. Higher and higher it flew. The crowd of people stood stunned. Tiger and Justin watched in amazement. Towards the stars the tampon flew when all of a sudden it was shot down by the United States government. And now everyone was safe. And Tiger went back to hitting the ball with Justin, and the people turned and walked away and went about their business as usual, which meant posing for selfies and posting them on social media. The end. Well, that was quite the fairy tale, wasn't it? I don't think there's going to be a children's story based on that anytime soon. Speaking of children's stories and children's cartoons in particular, Franklin the Turtle was in the news this week after a DNA test proved without a shadow of doubt that Franklin the Turtle is indeed the love child of Katie Couric and Mitch McConnell. You can dish it out, but you can't take it, eh? You know, during the Super Bowl a couple weeks ago, there was a lot of commercials we discussed, and one of them was that electrical vehicle commercial. The theme was premature electrification, which I thought was clever. And, you know, there's several EV, not ED, commercials during the Super Bowl. And, you know, I was looking into it, and actually I was pointing out that some of the electric car prices have come down quite a bit and sort of working their way towards the mainstream, if you will. Still too expensive for my ass, though. But anyhow, but generally, of course, you're seeing that throughout the economy is the move towards green innovation. And I'm actually a part of that movement. And I produced a little video for YouTube for that. And I would like to share it with you right now.
Environmental solutions for the lazy bastard.
Wow, look at all those leaves. A job like that'd take all day. But not for me. You see, I don't bag my leaves. I mulch them with my lawnmower. Scientists say that mulching your leaves helps the environment. And who's going to argue with a scientist? Not me. They know everything. Scientists say that mulching your leaves helps protect wildlife habitat and preserves nutrients in your lawn. Without enough oxygen to decompose, leaves and other debris in your yard release a greenhouse gas called methane into the air. So do farts, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Of course I care about the environment, but that's not why I mulch my leaves. I do it because I'm a lazy bastard.
Environmental solutions for the lazy bastard. Environmental solutions for the lazy bastard. Environmental solutions for the lazy bastard. Environmental solutions for the lazy bastard.
Break time.
And there you have it. As, of course, some other kind of grim environmental news that's been going on of late. I'm talking, of course, about the train derailment in Ohio, in East Palestine, Ohio, where the Norfolk Southern train derailed and several cars spilled all these toxic chemicals everywhere. The town and the area was evacuated. They were worried that there was going to be a explosion that would equal kind of a nuclear bomb or something. All sorts of heightened security around this accident. So from time to time we have these environmental disasters. I think back 30 some years ago to the Alaskan Valdez. It's called Valdez. It's not Valdez, it's Valdez, right? The Alaskan Valdez, the oil tanker that dumped a bunch of oil in the pristine waters off the coast of Alaska. I think it turned out that the captain was shit-faced or something, which is unacceptable, of course. This accident appears to have been a mechanical problem. Sometimes, I'm not downplaying a accident of this magnitude that we still don't really know what the fallout's going to be. We really don't know the level of contamination. It seems that they're saying the drinking water is fine, the air is fine, blah, blah, blah. But, we don't and we won't really know for a while. Nonetheless, I believe that an accident without malice is an accident. Now, businesses do have a responsibility not to cut corners with their safety and whatnot, which would increase the likelihood of an accident that could cause major health ramifications. I mean, so for example, if you were a virology lab and you reduced the level of safety, nobody intended for an accident to happen, but if it did happen and millions of people died, well, wait, I'm getting all mixed up here. Back to Ohio. Cut with the fish lips, would you? Done with the air base for now, folks. So you can all come back now. All two of you. So my point is that if there was no corners being cut and negligence to where safety protocols were ignored or skipped or somehow that led to the accident, that would be, not a malicious act and whatnot. It's still bad. And yes, Norfolk Southern still bears financial responsibility for cleaning up the mess and doing a good job of it. And of course, helping the community financially and all the families that leave and any sort of health issues that may come about this. They have a total responsibility for that. Otherwise, the people of East Palestine will really have been Norfolked. Okay, I just couldn't resist. But, train derailments do happen from time to time, and they've always happened. A lot of people think that we should reduce the level of car transportation and do more train travel, but trains do derail. And, if they're carrying chemicals, this can happen. That just kind of reminds me of a song about a train conductor I once knew.
I'd like to sing a song that my daddy sung to me when I was a boy. And before that, his daddy sung it to him too. And someday, when I reproduce, I'm gonna sing it to my boy as well. This song's called Hitler, the Little Train Conductor. And it goes something like this. Well, I heard that whistle blowing as the train pulled round the bend. That big old freighter kept chugging along, and I heard that whistle blow again. The train pulled in the station, and it came to a screeching halt. And then the little conductor climbed on out and said, "Jawohl." He looked like Hitler. He looked like Hitler. And he said, "Eat I, with the I, eat that, with the I, even leaving lip black, with the I, with the I, with the I." And I said, "Pardon me." Well, I admit I had second thoughts about riding on that train. No one likes to travel with a man who's gone completely insane, headed south of Nashville on that big old Dixie line. And I was trying to figure out what was going on inside that conductor's mind. He looked like Hitler. He looked like Hitler. And he said, "Eat I, with the I, eat that, with the I, even leaving leap left, third, right, what could I eat? With the I." I said, "Pardon me." Well, I closed my eyes in horror and I prayed that ride would end. I longed to hear the whistle as the train pulled in the station again. Next time I'll take a Greyhound or a Continental jet. That look on the little conductor's face is one I won't forget. He looked like Hitler. He looked like Hitler. And he said, "Eat I, with the I, eat I, with me glad Colonel Schultz, Olga Corbett, eat I, with the I, with the I." I said, "Pardon me." Hitler, the little train conductor.
Well, that was certainly quite the fairy tale, wasn't it? Last week, we were rudely interrupted by the sounds of dancing from above. Yes, that's right. But I was asked about the origins of that song. So the song from that little dance number was an original called The Waste of Westlake. How did that title come about, you ask? Well, that is a tale that is another stupid-ass thing from my childhood. Back in high school, 11th grade maybe, I was in an English literature class paying no attention to the teacher, whose name was Mrs. Gordon Ramsay. And I was just chattering, talking to the girls that were sitting behind me and kind of exchanging jokes with some of the other guys. And finally, Mrs. Gordon Ramsay stopped talking and just waited. She was waiting on me to stop talking, but since I was not paying attention to her, I didn't know she was waiting for me. I didn't know. So, yeah, kept doing that. Finally, Mrs. Gordon Ramsay, the English teacher, lit into me and started yelling. And so I stopped talking, of course. And during her diatribe, she went much further than just telling me to shut up or saying, you have a detention or this, that, or the other. She started saying, do you know, Mr. Castor, that you are the waste of Westlake? That's the name of the town. And the whole class went silent. And everybody's eyes were like, because she was really, really going into it. And I'm kind of turning beet red because I'm like, I was just talking, you know. On and on, she said I was a loser. I was the biggest waste to ever come through the school system. And everyone was just, you know, I could feel the sympathy, you know, just, you know, it was kind of an unspoken thing. And I'm like, oh, geez. When I looked around and these young girls were like looking at me with these sad, sympathetic eyes, which I took advantage of later. No. So then she, near the end of her diatribe, she kind of circled back a bit and said that I was capable of much, much more, and I was underperforming. So many words. And we had done a short story exercise, and I wrote a short story. I can't remember what it was about. But she said in this diatribe that it was so good that it could have been published. But here I was getting C's. And I'm like, yeah, but I was talking to this cute girl. Anyhow, so for a while then, the kids from that class, they'd see me in the hall and they'd say, hey, there's the waste of Westlake. So I'm like, that's me. And that, years later, led to that little ditty that our friend the panda was dancing to. And that, my friends, is another stupid-ass thing from my childhood. Well, that's about all the time we have on this week's edition of A Very Odd Caster. If there's anything on your mind that you would like to share, please send an email to veryoddcaster@gmail.com. That's veryoddcaster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us, all two of you, and have a great frickin' weekend.
Walking high, physical combat, crawling in the trenches, how they hide.